My name is Amelia Miller. I'm 32 years old, and for the last 9 years I thought I was building a cathedral. You know that feeling? When you pour every brick, every ounce of cement, and every late-night prayer into a person, believing that one day, the structure will finally be finished and you'll both get to live inside it. That was me and Jameson Smith. Jameson was charming. That's the word everyone used. He had this way of tilting his head when he listened to you, making you feel like you were the only person in a crowded room. We met in our early 20s, back when the future was just a vague, glittering concept. For 9 years, I was the steady one. I was the one who managed the 401k, the one who navigated the lease agreements for our apartment in Nob Hill, and the one who remembered his mother's birthday when he was too stressed with work. I'm a senior implementation lead for a medical CRM firm. My life is built on logic. If X happens, then Y is the result. It's clean. It's predictable. And for nearly a decade, I applied that same logic to Jameson. I thought, if I am patient, he will be ready. If I am supportive, he will be loyal. But patience isn't love. Sometimes patience is just a slow way of dying while you wait for someone who isn't coming. The not ready talk. God, I heard it so many times it became the background noise of our relationship. Amelia, I love you, but I'm just not there yet with the marriage thing. I need to feel stable in my career first. He was 34. He had a mid-level marketing job that paid well enough, mostly because I handled 80% of our shared expenses so he could invest in his personal brand. I believed him. I actually believed that the ground beneath my feet was solid. Until last Thursday. Thursday started like any other ordinary day, the kind that hides a disaster behind a boring morning routine. I had just closed a massive deal with a hospital network in Seattle. My biggest client, a man who doesn't take no for an answer, insisted on a celebratory dinner. He chose Vittorio's. It's one of those places where the wait list is 3 months long. The lighting is designed to make everyone look like a movie star, and the menu doesn't even bother with dollar signs. At 4 p.m., I texted Jameson. Going to be late tonight. Client dinner at Vittorio's. Don't wait up, love you. His reply came less than a minute later. It was almost too fast. Perfect timing, actually. My mom called. She's been feeling really lonely and wants me to head over for dinner. I'll probably just crash there so I don't have to drive back late. Have a great night, babe. You earned it. I smiled at my phone. That was Jameson. Always the good son. I felt a pang of guilt for ever doubting his commitment. I even thought about sending him a Venmo for a nice bottle of wine to take to his mother. I didn't. Thank God I didn't. I arrived at Vittorio's at 7:15 p.m. The air was thick with the scent of truffle oil and expensive perfume. My client was running 15 minutes late, typical power move, so the hostess led me to a small, secluded booth in the far corner. It was shielded by a large, decorative monstera plant and a frosted glass partition. I sat down, smoothed out my silk blazer, and pulled out my phone to check some last-minute Slack pings. But then, I heard it. That laugh. It was a low, melodic sound. A sound I had heard every single day for 9 years. It was Jameson's laugh. I froze. My thumb hovered over my screen. No, I thought, it's a common laugh. You're just tired. He's 40 minutes away in the suburbs, eating his mother's overcooked pot roast. But then came the voice. Honestly, Skylar, I've never felt this kind of connection with anyone. It's like everything before this was just a rehearsal. My heart didn't just drop. It turned into lead. My breath hitched in my throat, and for a second, the world went completely silent. I slowly, so slowly it felt like my bones were grating against each other, turned my head and peered through the leaves of the monstera, 3 tables away. Center stage. There was Jameson. He wasn't wearing the casual hoodie he said he was wearing to his mom's. He was in the navy tailored suit I had bought him for our anniversary. And across from him was a woman. Skylar. She looked like she stepped out of a Pinterest board, young. Blonde, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my first car. He was holding her hand across the white linen tablecloth. The same hand that had texted me, "Love you," 3 hours ago. I watched him lean in, his eyes gleaming with that same charming intensity he used to give me. He looked alive. He looked like a man who was very, very ready. I didn't scream. I didn't storm over and throw a glass of sparkling water in his face. I'm a data analyst, remember? I don't react until I have the full picture. I reached into my bag, my fingers trembling so hard I almost dropped my clutch. I pulled out my phone, set it to silent, and held it against the glass partition. Click one photo of them laughing. Click one photo of him kissing her knuckles. Click a 20-second video of him saying, "I just need a little more time to untangle things at home. But you're the only one I want, Sky." Untangle. That was the word he used for 9 years of my life. I wasn't his partner. I wasn't his future. I was a knot he was trying to untie. Just then, my phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Jameson. "Mom says hi. She's telling that embarrassing story about my third-grade play again. Wish you were here to suffer with me. Love you." I stared at the message. Then I looked at him, 3 tables away, whispering into Skylar's ear while she giggled. The betrayal was so clinical, so precise, that it almost commanded respect. It was a masterpiece of a lie. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just break, it crystallized. The warmth I had carried for him for nearly a decade evaporated, leaving behind something cold, hard, and very, very sharp. I didn't wait for my client. I sent him a quick text saying a family emergency had come up. I stood up, kept the Monstera between us, and walked out of that restaurant like a ghost. The cool San Francisco air hit my face, but I didn't feel the chill. I felt clear. I got into my car, gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, and I didn't cry. Not a single tear. I just looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror and whispered one thing. "Okay, Jameson. Let's untangle." I didn't drive to a friend's house. I didn't call my sister to sob into the phone. Honestly, I didn't even turn on the radio. I drove back to our Nome, my apartment in Nob Hill, in a silence so thick it felt like a physical weight. Jameson always called me the logistics queen. He meant it as a compliment. A way to justify why I was the one handling the taxes, the insurance, and the $4,500 monthly rent while he found his creative rhythm. But tonight, that title was going to be his worst nightmare. I pulled into the garage, my hands finally steady. The Ring camera pinged on my phone, notification I'd usually glance at with a smile. This time I opened the archive. 5:12 p.m., there he was. Jameson stepping out of the elevator, checking his reflection in the hallway mirror. He was whistling. He adjusted that navy blazer, the one I'd tailored for him, and checked his watch. The watch I gave him for his 30th. He looked like a man without a care in the world. Certainly not a man whose mother was lonely. I walked into the apartment. It smelled like his expensive sandalwood candle and the lingering scent of the espresso he'd made before leaving. Everything looked perfect. The mid-century modern furniture we'd picked out together, red, I paid for, and he approved. The organic linen throw pillows, the art prints from our trip to Kyoto. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. My eyes didn't sting. My throat didn't tighten. I felt surgical. First step. The joint checking account. We kept a shared pool for household expenses. But since Jameson was always between big contracts, I was the one topping it off. I scrolled through the recent transactions. Vittorio's, $342.18. He used our grocery money to buy Skylar sea bass and vintage Barolo. I felt a ghost of a laugh escape my lips. The audacity, it's a funny thing, isn't it? How men like Jameson think they're invisible just because they're charming. He thought I was too boring to look, too stable to suspect a thing. I didn't drain the account. Not yet. That would be too loud. Instead, I opened my personal terminal. I'm a senior lead. I know how to track data strings. I accessed our shared cloud drive. He was sloppy. He never thought to sign out of his personal folder on the home iMac. I found the Project Sky folder within seconds. It wasn't just a fling. It was a roadmap. Screenshots of Airbnbs in Tulum for next month. PDF receipts for a jewelry boutique. And the emails. God, the emails. Amelia is so settled in her routine, Sky. She doesn't even notice when I'm gone. She's the anchor, but you're the wind. I stared at the screen. An anchor. He really saw my stability, my hard work, and my loyalty as a heavy object dragging him down. He loved the safety of the harbor but hated the fact that the harbor had rules. "Okay, Jameson," I whispered to the empty room. "Let's see how you handle the open sea without a map." I started the project disentanglement spreadsheet. I'm a professional, after all. Column A, assets. Column B, ownership. Column C, the kill switch. The lease was in my name. I'd insisted on it years ago because my credit score was 810. And his was, well, creative. I logged into the resident portal. We were on a month-to-month basis after the initial 2-year term. Action: submit 30-day notice to vacate. Effective immediately. Next, the utilities. The high-speed fiber internet, the electric, the water, all in my name. I didn't shut them off. I simply scheduled the cancellation for the same day as the lease termination. Then, I looked at his precious 401k. He didn't have much, but I had been the one managing his small freelance contributions into a diversified portfolio. I logged out. I wouldn't touch his money. I'm not a thief. I'm just withdrawing my services. I spent the next 3 hours backing up 9 years of digital memories onto an encrypted external drive. Every photo of our hikes, every video of our Christmases, every "I love you" text. I didn't want him to have them. He didn't get to keep the evidence of my love while he built a life with someone else. I deleted them from the cloud. Delete. Permanent delete. Scrub. Around 11:30 p.m., my phone vibrated. Just leaving Mom's. She was so happy to see me, but I'm exhausted. Staying the night here, like I said. Miss you, babe. Can't wait to see your boring, beautiful face tomorrow. Boring. There it was again. His favorite label for me. I didn't reply immediately. I waited 10 minutes. The exact amount of time it would take to finish a chapter of a book. Understandable. Sleep well, Jameson. Everything here is exactly as it should be. It wasn't a lie. Everything was as it should be. The foundation was being pulled, the supports were being cut, and the logistics queen was officially resigning. I walked into our bedroom, the room where we talked about kids, about buying a house in Marin, about growing old. I looked at his side of the bed. Messy. He always expected me to straighten the sheets. I didn't straighten them. I went to the hall closet, pulled out 2 large suitcases, and began to pack. Not his things. Mine. I didn't take the furniture. I didn't take the heavy stuff. I took my clothes, my jewelry, my documents, and the small, personal treasures that belonged to the woman I was before I met him. By 2 a.m., my car was packed. I looked around the living room one last time. It looked like a showroom. Cold, impersonal. Just the way he liked his aesthetic. I left a single thing on the kitchen island. It was the receipt from Vittorio's. I'd asked the hostess for a duplicate on my way out of the restaurant. I'd circled the Barolo and the sea base with a bright red highlighter. Underneath it, I wrote 3 words on a post-it note. Have a nice swim. I didn't feel sad. I felt light. For the first time in 9 years, I wasn't carrying the weight of a man who didn't want to be held. I wasn't an anchor anymore. I was the captain. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and dropped my key into the building's secure drop box. I wasn't going to be there when he came home. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of a confrontation, of a scene where he could gaslight me or tell me I was being emotional. He wanted freedom. He was about to get it. Along with a 30-day countdown to homelessness and a credit score that was about to hit rock bottom without my subsidies. As I drove toward the hotel I'd booked under my maiden name, I saw the first hint of dawn over the Bay Bridge. 9 years. It's a long time to build a lie. But it only takes a few hours to dismantle it if you know where the screws are. And I built the whole damn thing. I knew exactly where to pull. The silence of a high-end hotel room is different from the silence of a home. It's antiseptic. It doesn't hold memories. No ghosts of Sunday brunches, no lingering arguments about whose turn it is to empty the dishwasher. Just the faint hum of the haka and the smell of bleached cotton. I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed at the Fairmont, staring at my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror. I looked the same. That was the weirdest part. You expect betrayal to leave a visible mark, a scar across your cheek, maybe, or eyes that have turned a different color. But I just looked like Amelia. A little tired, perhaps. A little too still. I checked my phone. 6:42 a.m. The Ring camera notification popped up. Jameson was home. I shouldn't have watched. My therapist would probably say it's digital self-harm, but I didn't feel hurt. I felt like a scientist watching a lab rat realize the maze has been redesigned. I watched the live feed on my phone. Jameson walked up to the front door, still wearing that navy blazer. He looked slightly disheveled. The ash spent dash the dash night, dash on dash my dash mom single quotes couch. Look he'd perfected over the years. He reached for his keys. He frowned. Then he remembered. The keys were in the Dropbox. He'd have to use the keypad. He punched in the code. Beep, beep, red flash. ID changed the master code from his birthday to the date I landed my first six-figure contract. A date he never bothered to remember. He tried again. Faster this time. Beep dash, beep dash, beep dash, beep. Red flash. He looked at the camera. He looked confused, then annoyed. He pulled out his phone. My screen lit up a second later. Jameson is calling. I let it ring. I watched him on the screen, holding the phone to his ear, pacing the hallway. He looked at his watch. He probably thought I was still asleep. He probably thought the boring Amelia had just messed up the smart lock settings again. Then he did what he always did when he was frustrated. He kicked the door. Not hard, but enough to show his temper. Then he tried the handle. The door was unlocked. Right, I'd left it unlocked. I wanted him to walk in. I wanted him to see the stage I'd set. I watched him enter. The camera in the foyer caught him stopping dead in his tracks. The apartment was empty. Not completely, of course, the heavy furniture was still there, but the soul of it was gone. My plants, my books, my overpriced espresso machine, my life. He walked toward the kitchen island. I could see the back of his head as he spotted the post-it note and the highlighter circled receipt from Vittorio. He stood there for a long, long time. Total stillness. And then his phone must have vibrated. Not from me. From the building management. See, when you submit a notice of intent to vacate, and the primary leaseholder, me, explicitly states that the secondary occupant, him, is not authorized to renew or stay past the 30-day window. The automated systems of a San Francisco luxury high-rise move very, very fast. He would have received the DocuSign move-out checklist right about then. I turned off the feed. I'd seen enough. The thing about men like Jameson is that they don't realize they are subsidized until the checks stop clearing. He thought his lifestyle was a result of his vibe and his creative energy. He forgot it was actually the result of my spreadsheets, my 60-hour work weeks, and my relentless attention to detail. I spent the morning in the hotel's business center. I had work to do, real work. But every few minutes my phone would scream. 12 missed calls. 34 unread texts. The tone shifted rapidly. 7:15 a.m. Amelia? What is this? Why is the door code changed? Why are your things gone? Talk to me. 7:45 a.m. I saw the note. Amelia, it's not what it looks like. Vittorio's was a business meeting. Skylar is a potential lead. You're overreacting. This is insane. 8:30 a.m. The building manager just emailed me. They said the lease is terminating in 30 days. You can't do that. Where am I supposed to go? Amelia, pick up the phone. 9:15 a.m. You're being vindictive. I knew you were controlling, but this is mental abuse. I'm calling a lawyer. I smiled at that last one. A lawyer. With what money, Jameson? The 401k you haven't touched in 3 years? The credit card that's a secondary user on my account? I opened my banking app. It was time for the kill switch phase. I didn't just remove him from the cards. I canceled the cards entirely. Lost or stolen, I told the automated bot. It's safer that way. New numbers, new security chips. Clean break. Next, the car. The Tesla was a joint gift for our anniversary, but surprise, the financing was in my name. And the title was in my name. I opened the Tesla app. I could see the car's location. It was parked in the building's garage. Command, remote lock. Command, disable key cards. If he wanted to drive to Skylar's to cry on her shoulder, he was going to have to call an Uber, on his own dime. I felt a strange, cold humming in my chest. It wasn't rage. It was the satisfaction of a perfectly executed logout. Jameson had spent years treating me like a service provider, a housekeeper who also paid the bills and provided sex. Well, the service provider had reached the end of the contract. Around noon, I finally sent one text. Just one. The untangling has begun, Jameson. You said you wanted freedom. You said I was an anchor. Well, you're floating now. Enjoy the view. He replied instantly. A wall of text. Begging. Then insulting. Then begging again. He mentioned his mother. He mentioned our 9 years. He mentioned how cruel I was being to do this over a simple misunderstanding. I didn't read past the first few lines. I archived the thread. I had a meeting at 2:00 p.m. with the hospital board. I needed to be sharp. I needed to be the logistics queen they were paying for. As I walked out of the hotel, the valet greeted me by name. I got into my rental a sleek black SUV that Jameson didn't have the codes for. I adjusted the mirror, put on my sunglasses, and felt the weight of 9 years finally lifting off my shoulders. He thought I was boring because I was stable. He thought I was predictable because I was loyal. He's about to find out that stable people are the most dangerous ones to cross. Because when we leave, we don't just walk out the door. We take the door, the floor, and the ceiling with us. Anyway, I have a career to expand. And Jameson? He has 29 days left to find a place that accepts vibes as a security deposit. 2 days later, I was sitting in my new office, a temporary co-working space in the Ferry Building with a view of the water. The air was crisp, and for the first time in nearly a decade, my Slack wasn't cluttered with Jameson emergencies. No texts asking where his blue tie was. No calls about why the Amazon Prime delivery was late. Just work. But I wasn't just working on my CRM implementation. I was running a background audit on the life I'd left behind. Jameson hadn't just used my money. He'd used my presence. In San Francisco, reputation is the only currency that matters more than equity. I had introduced him to everyone. My mentors, my venture capitalist friends, the people who actually ran this city. He was the charming partner of Amelia Miller. I decided it was time to update my status. I didn't make a big, dramatic, "we broke up" post on Instagram. That's for people who want sympathy. I wanted results. I logged into LinkedIn. My profile is impeccable. 15,000 connections. High engagement. I crafted a post that was a masterpiece of corporate doublespeak. Grateful for the clarity that comes with new beginnings. I've officially moved on from my previous living situation, and am refocusing all my energy on my upcoming projects at the Seattle network. To all my professional contacts, please note that I am no longer associated with any freelance ventures or branding projects previously managed through my domestic partnership. Clean slate, forward only. Hashtag women in tech, hashtag strategic growth, hashtag new chapters. To a stranger, it looked like a standard girl boss update. To Jameson's potential clients, it was a death sentence. It told them the bank was closed. The support system was gone. If they hired him, they were getting the man, not the woman standing behind him with a red pen and a credit card. Within an hour, my phone pinged. A Venmo notification. Jameson Smith requested $2,000. Note: Amelia, please. I'm at a motel. The Tesla is still locked. I can't even get my clothes. This is illegal. Send me enough to get a rental and a deposit on a studio. Please. I declined it in 3 seconds. Request denied. Then came the text from Skylar's number. I guess he'd run out of data on his own plan. Amalia, this is Skylar. Look, I didn't know he was still living with you. He told me you were his property manager and that things were platonic. But you can't just leave him on the street. It's cruel. He's a good man. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud, a sharp, dry sound that startled the person at the next desk. Property manager. Honestly, he wasn't entirely wrong. I had been managing his property, his finances, and his very existence. I didn't block Skylar. I wanted her to see the truth. I sent her a single PDF. It was the Project Sky folder I'd found on the cloud. Specifically, the screenshots of the Tulum Airbnb been looking at all scheduled for dates when he told her he'd be away on a solo retreat to clear his head. Wait, there was a twist. I checked the dates. He had told me he was going to a marketing seminar in Vegas, He told her he was going on a solo retreat, but the Airbnb guest list on the receipt he drafted? Guest 3. I did a quick IP log trace from our shared home network history. He wasn't just cheating with Skiller. He was looking at a third person. A girl named Mila from his old college days. Jameson wasn't a romantic. He was a collector. I sent the PDF to Skylar with a brief note. Skylar, I'm not his property manager, I was his foundation. And as for him being a good man, you might want to check the guest count for that Tulum trip you think you going on. I'm not the one leaving him on the street. Gravity is. 10 minutes later, the Jameson is calling notifications started again. This time they were accompanied by texts from Skylar that were less than sympathetic to him. I could almost see it happening. The small, cramped motel room. Jameson sitting on the edge of a stained bed, trying to explain away the third guest to a woman who was realizing her soulmate was just a man with a lot of passwords. The entropy was setting in. I went back to my spreadsheet. Act 4 was almost complete. I had one more anchor to pull. Jameson's mother. I liked Martha. She was a sweet woman. But she was the one who had raised a man who thought the world owed him a comfortable chair. I called her. Martha, it's Amelia. Oh, Amelia. Jameson told me you two were having a little spat. He said you'd gone away for a work trip and forgot to leave the spare key. Is everything okay? My heart softened for a split second, then hardened again. He was still lying, even to his own mother. Martha, I'm not on a work trip. I've ended the relationship. Jameson was at Vittorio's with another woman the night he said he was with you. I've canceled the lease on the apartment. He has 28 days to get his things before the cleaners come. I wanted you to hear it from me because I won't be taking your calls anymore. But who will take him to his specialist appointments? Who will manage his LLC taxes? Amelia, he doesn't know how to do those things. Exactly, Martha, I said quietly. He doesn't, and it's time he learned. Goodbye, Martha. I hung up. The silence that followed was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. No more excuses, no more untangling. The knots were gone. I was standing on the deck of my own life, and for the first time there was nothing but open water ahead. Jameson thought I was boring because I was the one who made sure the lights stayed on. He asks about to find out how dark the world gets when the boring person stops caring. I closed my laptop, grabbed my bag, and walked out into the San Francisco sunshine. I had a dinner reservation. For one. And I was going to order the sea bass. 3 weeks later. The 29th day of the 30-day countdown. San Francisco was shrouded in its typical afternoon fog, the Carl the Fog that Jameson used to complain about because it ruined his golden hour lighting for his lifestyle photos. I was sitting in a corner cafe in Hayes Valley, sipping a dry cappuccino. I wasn't hiding. I was waiting. Jameson had sent me 42 emails in 20 days. I'd set up a filter so they all bypassed my inbox and went straight to a folder labeled Evidence. I only checked it once a day, with the same clinical detachment I used to check server logs at work. His trajectory had been predictable. Phase 1, rage. Phase 2, gaslighting. You're mentally unstable, Amelia. Phase 3, bargaining. We can go to couples therapy, I'll pay you back. And finally, Phase 4, desperation. He had requested a meeting. To finalize the handover of the remaining items, he wrote, I knew what he really wanted. He wanted to see if the boring Amelia was still there, the one he could charm back into a trial reconciliation. Translation, a place to sleep and a paid-off phone bill. He walked into the cafe at 3:15 p.m. He looked diminished. The navy blazer was wrinkled. His hair, usually perfectly coiffed with expensive pomade, looked flat. He'd lost weight, but not the good kind. He looked like a man who had been living out of a suitcase and eating motel continental breakfasts. I didn't stand up. I didn't smile. I just watched him approach. My heart rate stayed at a steady 65 BPM. Amelia, he said, his voice cracking slightly. He tried to reach for my hand. I moved my hand to pick up my spoon. Sit down, Jameson. We have 20 minutes. I have a board meeting at 4. He sat. He looked around the cafe, then back at me. You look different. Did you do something to your hair? I stopped carrying 180 pounds of dead weight, I said. Short. Like a surgical strike. Let's talk about the apartment. The movers are coming tomorrow at 8 o'clock am. Everything of mine is already gone. Your remaining items, the clothes you didn't take, that vintage turntable I paid for, and your gym equipment will be placed in a 5x5 storage unit in Oakland. I slid a small key and a piece of paper across the table. I've paid for the first month. After that, the credit card on file will expire. If you don't update it, they auction the contents. It's an automated system. No human intervention possible. He stared at the key like it was a live grenade. Oakland, Amelia, I don't even have a car anymore. The Tesla. Why did you report it stolen? I didn't report it stolen, I said, leaning back. I reported it as an unauthorized use of a corporate asset. Since the LLC that owns the car is in my name, and you are no longer a contractor for that LLC. Well, the math is simple. I'm not a contractor. I helped you build that brand. You helped me spend the profits, Jameson. There's a difference. He leaned in, trying to use that old melting gaze. Look, I know I messed up. The thing with Skylar, she's nothing. She's a child. I was just bored, Amelia. You know how it is in this city, everything is so fast, so transactional. I miss the us that didn't care about KPIs and spreadsheets. I felt a cold ripple of amusement. You miss the us that paid for your life, Jameson. Let's be honest, Skylar dumped you, didn't she? I saw her TikTok. How I found out my sugar daddy was actually a sugar baby. It had 200,000 views last time I checked. Tough break. His face went pale. The property manager PDF I'd sent her had clearly done its work. You ruined me, he whispered. I lost the consultancy gig with the Miller Group. They said they decided to go in a more stable direction. That was your doing, wasn't it? I took a sip of my coffee. I simply had a conversation with their CEO, my mentor, about risk management. I told him that a man who can manage his own domestic legalities probably shouldn't be managing a $3 million marketing spend. It was a professional courtesy. You know how much I value transparency. You're a monster, he spat. The charm was gone now. The mask had slipped, revealing the jagged, ugly ego underneath. 9 years! I gave you the best years of my life. And you're treating this like a software update? I stood up. I smoothed my skirt. I felt nothing, no pity, no anger. Just the satisfaction of a task completed. Jameson, you didn't give me years. You rented them. And the lease is up. I checked my watch. 3:35 p.m. The storage unit key is there. The Tesla has been sold to a wholesaler. I used the proceeds to pay off the remaining balance on your credit cards. You are officially at zero. No debt, but no assets. You're finally free, just like you wanted. I started to walk away, then stopped. Oh, and Jameson? Don't bother calling your mom. She's currently in Arizona. I helped her book a 3-month retreat. I told her she needed a break from managing people. She agreed. I didn't look back. I walked out of that cafe and into the fog. The next morning, I stood in my new home. A penthouse in a different part of the city. No sandalwood candles. No navy blazers in the closet. The walls were a soft, quiet white. I opened my laptop and checked the final project disentanglement box. Task, complete. System status, stable. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Probably his third burner phone this week. You think you won. But you're going to be alone forever. You're too cold, Amelia. No man wants a woman who calculates everything. I didn't block it. I didn't delete it. I just replied with one word. Calculated. Then I turned off the phone. For 9 years, I was the anchor. I was the one who held everything down while he floated. Now, the anchor was gone. But I wasn't sinking. I was the mountain. And I was finally standing on my own ground.